Okay.
Well, welcome everyone. Most of you know me. I'm Eva de Gosztonyi. I'm a psychologist with the Riverside School Board and with the Center of Excellence for Behaviour Management. And of course, those of you that are participating, most of you took the Rest, Play, Grow book study with me on Dr. MacNamara's book, Rest, Play, Grow. And I'll introduce her a bit more formally in a moment. I want to introduce my two colleagues for the Center of Excellence who are here with me. Martine Demers. Martine,
Good afternoon.
There you go. And Catherine?
Hello, everybody.
Yes. So Martine and Catherine work with me at the Center of Excellence. If you've had a chance to visit our website, you'll see many of the resources there that we have developed. And so do visit it a bit later if you want some more information. And we're going to so what we'll do today is this is a webinar format, so you are not able to come on with your camera or with your microphone, but you have submitted questions. So we're going to ask those questions of Dr. MacNamara, Deborah, she prefers to be called, and then if you do have questions that come to you, you can submit them in the chat area. Martine and Catherine will be monitoring that, and we're going to be going until so we have an hour and a quarter. So once we get through all the questions that you've submitted, if there are extra questions, Martine and Catherine will share those with us as well. And so without further ado, I'm so pleased that Deborah is able to join us from Vancouver. Deborah is a clinical counselor and of course the author of Rest, Play, Grow, and also the author of a children's book called The Sorry Plane. And also the mother of 2 adolescents. So Deborah is here to answer the questions that you have sent. So welcome, Deborah.
Thank you, Eva.
All right, let me get my questions here.
I'm delighted to be here. And can I just say how wonderful it is to work with all of you and for all of your support for Rest, Play, Grow. It's been, when you first told me you were doing this book club, Eva, and the numbers of people that signed up and interest in the book, it was absolutely heartwarming for me. You know, when you're writing something, you're not sure if anyone's going to read it, if it's going to be helpful. And then to have a response, it was just, it was really special. And so thank you for taking the time and energy to do that. A heartfelt gratitude to all of you. And for everyone who came today and who were part of your book club, I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I knew it was information that people needed to have, especially because we were starting our 4-year-old kindergartens here in Quebec, and it was quite a new, well, we'd had a few of them, but as a general province, we were starting it. So there was concern and people wanted to know more. And it just seems as if it's responding to a need that people have. A lot of information. I know that people are still digesting it. But thank you so much for writing the book so that we have something to refer to. Yeah, very helpful. Well, I'm going to start in, and I liked this question because it kind of represented a 4-year-old to me. What does it mean when a 4-year-old tells you, "You will not drive my life"?
What does it mean? Well, not knowing the context, it could mean a lot of things, actually. So how would we take a 4-year-old? You know, it's pretty provocative when a child tells you that, because of course they need you to be in charge. But how do we do that when we're faced with such pushback from a child? And how do we interpret that pushback? Does that mean that we're not in control? Does that mean we're not in the lead? I think sometimes parents think, or adults think, or teachers think that if a child isn't following us, that therefore we're not in the lead. And that's not true. Sometimes you'll get, you know, around the age of, there's 2 ways to look at this. There are 2 possible ways anyway. There's many ways, but 2 possible ways is at the age of 4, by the time a child is 3, 3.5, they get this a sense of autonomy. There's this individuation, differentiation. There's this growth into selfhood. And when they get into selfhood, the word "I" becomes really quite predominant. I do it myself. No, you not tell me this, and they'll push you away, and they'll be very firm in wanting to do it themselves. Now that is the process of healthy development. It should be situational. And that's the whole thing. It should be situational, that the child will sometimes, most of the time, follow you, but there'll be times in particular where the child is just full of this energy of "I do it myself" and selfhood. And they'll say, "You're not going to drive my life. I'll decide. Don't call me that." It's situational, though. It's a result of just that child feeling full with connection and actually likely moving into play or some sort of space where they're full of themselves in the best way possible. They've got their own agenda, they've got their own will, they've got their own ideas, and adults um, are crowding that space. The child should, if it's healthy development that a child is saying this out of, then they should follow you most of the time. And sometimes you might have just caught them where you weren't connected in the moment. You came up and they were doing something and they're just not connecting to you in the moment, and they're full of themselves. On the other hand, what I would say is that sometimes you hear this, if this was more persistent, if it was chronic, if it was what you expected every time you went in to talk to a child, that they would tell you to get away, you're not in charge of me, go, I'm not going to follow you. They seem to be deaf to your words, and it was more chronic and enduring, I'd be a little bit more concerned about this. Is this child, A, have a relationship with you? Remember, children do not follow adults, they don't have a relationship with you. So that would be the first question. Do you have a relationship that you've worked on, that you've built with this child? If the answer is yes, and they're not, if the answer is no, then no child should actually let you drive their life if they don't have a relationship with you. It should seem very unnatural to be bossed around by strangers, right? If you see that at the park, a child, is bossed around by another adult, that adult should say, or that child should say, no, I'm not going to follow you. If you have a relationship with this child, or you're responsible for this child, and this child turns around and consistently does not follow you, does not attend to you, does not want to come close to you, doesn't respect your authority in this way, then I would say we might have a problem around dominance. And that was in chapter 5 of Rest, Play, Grow, the phenomenon of the child who takes the lead. This is not the lead of independence. This is not the lead of healthy development. This is a child who is desperate to take matters of attachment into their own hands, and are therefore telling adults how to take care of them. Our children should not tell us how to take care of them. It is our job to take the lead here. So we could look at this in a lot of different ways. The important thing is to see what's driving it. Is it a child who's got their own mind, and this is just kind of a situational thing? I do it myself. They just want to be proud of their endeavors. Is it because, the second thing is because you come up beside a child and told them what to do without being in relationship, and so you see this child is very resistant to you because you haven't collected them first? And number 3, do you have a child who just resists in a chronic way your leadership, does not defer to you, does not look to you to be the adult leader here? And if that is the case, then you've got to work to bring that child back into dependence with you, because nothing will work if that child doesn't depend upon you. So those would be 3 ways that I would look at this. It's really important with this question to look at the roots and not just trip all over a 4-year-old who says, you're not the boss of me. Because it could come from many different places. So just sit and think with it. Hold on to your alpha position. Well, that's interesting. I can see why you wouldn't like that. It doesn't mean you agree with them. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Yeah, I've heard that before. Like, you don't have to get into it with them. You could add a little bit of humor in it, but just take your time to think this through before you proceed, because in a lot of ways you could really make a mess if you go too hard and, oh yeah, I'm driving your boat, I'm driving your ship, let me show you how I'll drive your ship. That child's going to get more resistant. They're going to push back, and you might resort to more heavy-handed or overpowering, heavy-handed approaches, or overpowering the child, which then will lead to problems in the relationship. So take your time. You don't have to treat them as an equal here. That's very interesting. Thank you for letting me know. And you can just kind of acknowledge the resistance, and just buy yourself a little bit of time before you proceed, because your eyes have to lead you on this one in particular. It has to lead you on all of them, but this one in particular can go sideways really quickly if you get really stirred up and like, this child has got to obey. Well, that's likely going to push someone's buttons, that's for sure.
Thank you. Okay. Well, the next set of questions are around resistance. People wanted to know, how do I motivate a child to complete tasks that they don't want to complete? How long should you wait before asking a child to begin an activity when asked twice? And what do you do when nothing works? And then, how do you help them to participate in doing the things that you want them to do? So basically, what do you do when they say they don't want to?
Well, I wish I could figure this out for myself sometimes with my own 2 teenagers, from unloading the dishwasher to housework. I mean, we have the same problem in our own houses, don't we? Where we are not always motivated to do the things that we need to do, that we have to do. We can find our motivation wanes, and especially if someone has control over your time and structure, and is in charge, if you're in a workplace, you don't always feel like doing what your boss wants you to do. So resistance can come from lots of places. It's important to remember that this is an emotion, and that emotion is part and parcel of what's hardwired into our brain. It's there for lots of good reasons. It's chapter 9 on counter will, this resistance and opposition. And it's very provocative. Holy cow. When someone, especially a child that you are in charge of, tells you, I will not, no, I won't, and you're the adult and you've got outcomes to deliver, you've got a class that's watching, you've got all sorts of pressure on your shoulders to get stuff done and to remember that you've got the classroom environment. I think we feel a lot of pressure on our shoulders when kids resist. So I think it's important to hold on to that, because this will be provocative. If you act out of your own resistance and your own persistence that that child has to do what you say, likely you're going to go sideways quickly, because resistance met with resistance usually flares. Or a child will have to capitulate out of fear, and that's not going to serve your relationship. So resistance, there's lots of things to do to make it worse. Try to avoid those. If you really feel like pushing back, that's probably not good. At the same time, one of the things that could be really helpful is just to acknowledge the resistance. You're having a hard time working today. You don't feel like doing this right now. This just makes you feel, ugh, you're just sick of it. It's June, you're tired. It's math, right? Your head's a little tired. I know, right? So whatever you need to say to come to the child's side and acknowledge that there is some resistance there. You don't know the root of it. We don't know what it's about. But then you are beside the child and you're not an adversary. That already is helping fostering relationships so you can find a way through whatever this impasse is. We're going to need that relationship to find a way through the impasse. And then the second thing is when you come along, so first thing is don't let it push your buttons as much as possible. Be frustrated on the inside of your head, not on the outside. And and then to come alongside it, you're frustrating, you're having a hard time doing this. Well, good thing I'm here to help, but we'll find a way through. You don't have to be specific on how you're going to get your way through. You can just present yourself as being the answer. Well, I'm going to help you here. That's what teachers are for. When it's hard, that's my specialty. And you're just giving yourself a little bit of time. I'd like you just to try for 5 more minutes. I'll be back, or it's okay. Just take a breath. Go for a glass of water or whatever it is. Just take a breath, and we're gonna just go for 5 more minutes, and then we're gonna take a break. I think the class needs a break right now. Like, just find a way to lead through the impasse. If you can look around and you see everyone's kind of struggling with it, maybe you need to back up in a relationship. Maybe you need to figure something out. The class needs a break. They need to play. This child needs a little bit of extra contact. Oh, so that's it. You can focus on something else other than the worksheet or whatever it is they're struggling with. Oh, I see you've got your favorite t-shirt on today, or something, else that just is a point of saying, I'm here, and you're trying to connect. Because when resistance comes up, the connection piece often gets lost. And if you can get to the connection, you're more likely to lead the child through the resistance or lead in the direction you want to go. So try to find maybe a connection point and collect the child if you can. Step out of the conflict and step into relationship. And then you can step back into whatever the task is later when you have the child on your side. I think just, you've got to get underneath the problem. Resistance is provocative. Adults are very, very likely to take a very, pushback in a very quick way when they feel resistance, because they feel they're in charge and they have to maintain order and control. No, the first thing we have to do is we have to maintain our relationship, and that through our relationship is how we provide safety, security, and structure in a classroom. No one feels safe when someone thinks they're in control and clearly can't control everything, because you can't control everybody's behavior. But the safest time that you feel in a classroom is when a child is not in control and the adult isn't losing it. Well, that's interesting. I'm sure this won't be the first time this happens. Yeah, I remember being like that about math. I remember my daughter once, she pushed back and she said, I'm not doing my homework. I hate math. She was in grade 4. And I said, yeah, math, I understand that. You're tired and stuff. Well, I'm not doing it. Well, that is your choice, honey. Well, and grade 4 math will be there all the rest of the year for you. And next year, if you don't get it done this year, the year following, and I'll love you through it. But yeah, sometimes it's not going away, but I know you wish it would. Oh, resistance, there's you could write a book just on counterwill. So just to recap, number one, it's provocative. Don't push back if you can help it. Keep it in your head. Your job is to lead through the impasse with your relationship in tow. Try to find a way to connect to the child if you can. Get out of the battle, get into relationship, and then try to find a child to lead back to it. It might just be that, read the cues. They need a break. They need something, change it up. They're struggling. Maybe they need to play for a little bit, and you can lead them back to the task when you've got your relationship in tow. And thirdly, don't be afraid to come alongside and reflect. Resistance is natural. So many times we think it's okay for, we talk, if you looked at yourself and how much you talk about feeling pushed around, you would realize that this is the human condition. And so our kids in our care, of course, they're going to push back when they're anxious about something, fearful, afraid. Any other emotion can be underneath it. So try to come alongside that and preserve your relationship. But this is a doozy. This emotion packs a punch. Wow.
Yeah. One question sort of related to that is, someone said, well, the child has absolutely said no, no way. Do you just leave them alone? Do you talk to them about it? When you talk to them about it, what kind of emotion are you trying to get at?
Well, I mean, you've got to find your own style. But if a child was saying to me, no way, no way, no way, I would be like, wow, it would be very, very clear to me that this child has a lot of no's in them. And I would probably reflect that. You've got a lot of no's in you today. Holy cow. Are you, you haven't been really clear. Is that a no? Like, I would just joke around a little bit with, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Is that no? Like if I had a relationship and it wasn't perceived as sarcastic or shaming, I might joke around a little bit like, wow, someone does not want to do this. I heard you. Okay. Wow. And I try to explore what's underneath that. Like, that's a pretty strong reaction. Now, if I was leading a class and a child said that to me, as a teacher, there's another layer, because I don't want my class to think that I don't want to revolt. No way, no way. And I might just try to read the pulse of the class and say, it's okay, you can struggle and I will help you. We have to get it done. I'm here to help you, but I can see right now it's difficult. So I'd like you to take a break, or don't worry about it. We'll get it done. I'll come back around and help you. Sometimes we just got a lot of no's in us, better out than in. And I would reframe it, and I would make sure I would collect my class, because the big thing about being in a classroom environment is it's like a contagion effect. One gets it here and you're worried about it spilling out. But if they can see you take the lead and say, I've got room for your no's, I've got room for your struggles, I've got room for your challenges. Every one of you needs something maybe a little bit different. I'll help you with that. I'm not worried about this, right? And take the lead in whatever way seems fair. Just say, okay, you know what, guys, I just think we've been at this for a while. We just need to go get some fresh air. We just need to stand up and have a body break, right? Everybody stand up and give me your favorite animal pose, and I'll try to guess it. See if you can trick me if I can't see what animal you are, right? And then you can come up with whatever and try to guess. Just try to find a way through the impasse, preserving your relationship. Everybody in the classroom feels a lot safer. And those no's, once they've said out loud and they're not hurting anybody, then, they go away and we can come back around to it. But work is hard. Work is frustrating.
Yeah, and the way I like to frame it is, I say you have to figure out how to stay in charge, even if you can't be in control.
Yes.
Right? So you're still the leader. You're still the one that's in charge, even if you've allowed a child perhaps to not do everything you've wanted them to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's they still have to do it. The expectation is we still have to do it, but I can see this as a struggle. We'll get to it, because it's like, as a teacher, you plan this route to get through something, and then kids get on the task and then they go all sorts of different directions. And it's kind of like standing there going, well, I know we take that direction. I know we'd go there too. That's fine. We all learn in different ways. And you're just preparing for the chaos that and the uncertainty that young kids or kids represent. And especially when you combine learning with that, emotions, and then you've got a task, and then you've got learning, and then you got to lead it. I think we do really well considering everything that's on our plates. Like, this is a lot, right?
Yeah. Well, the next set of questions is around emotions, and because we talked, in your book, you talk a lot about having a chance to express emotions, let emotions come out, move through. So how can we create a playground of emotions in schools? Are there some different techniques and
Mm,
ideas? Um, yeah.
wonderful. Well, this idea of play in schools. So true play, as we talk about in chapter 3, is really about pressing pause on outcomes, pressing pause on expectations. So creating an environment where children don't feel they have to perform and meet an expectation. Now, remember, at school, everything is about that outcomes and learning outcomes and judging and evaluating. And the true times where that is not true for kids is usually at recess or lunch, where they're free. Recess is a break from the outcomes. So, if you're going to create some sort of emotional playground, I would think that you're going to have to put it into some structure, routine, or ritual, because kids understand that best of all. This is a break, this is a recess. This is a break into play and out of work. I would make that transition really clear somehow. It's a body break. It's you got 5 minutes for play or whatever it is that we're doing. We're going to go for a walk and get fresh air. It's not about doing anything, but just being in the activity. You can use anything for an emotional playground. A piece of paper can become a doodle. A pen can become a baton. Going for a walk, just moving your body outside, and having just a space that's free of outcome is actually really the most critical thing here for kids. Now, they will oftentimes turn to each other. As soon as you give them a break, they're going to turn to each other. If you want some solitude this way, then you might give them some materials and just move outside. You could bring out different materials for expression, whether that be paper, tape, or whatever it is that you've got, crayons, whatever. Bring the materials into a new environment, and automatically say, this is not for work, this is just for play. So your leadership, you're basically trying to set the stage by removing the outcomes, the consequences, the whatever, and bringing materials that you think might be relevant to that endeavor. It could be music. You could be playing music at the same time. It could be art supplies. It could be balls if the kids need to move. Just think about all the traditional playgrounds that you would associate with play: art, music, drama, movement, whatever it is, and think about how to do that. My friend, actually, this is a dream. One of my friends who's a grade 4 teacher, this is one of my ultimate dreams. And she said, Deb, we're doing some seismic upgrading at our school, and I would love to put in a proposal that we build Rest, Play, Grow into our school environment outside. And Rest would be a place, she's got a gazebo where the kids can learn. They have a big gazebo that serves as an outdoor classroom, and we could have a place of rest where kids could do stuff, climb over things. We could do play, where she said we'd have a forest and we could do all sorts of stuff in the forest, and magical fairy stuff or whatever it is, little tables, and just have play and mud kitchens or whatever it is. And then Grow, we'd have a place where we'd grow vegetables, and that would be play, and we'd see what we would grow, in a kitchen where we could cook, and how we could move so much of this idea of Rest, Play, Grow into a school environment and create those kind of play spaces for our kids that promote these emotional playgrounds. From a very practical point of view, I would say elementary schools in particular that I've seen who've done this well across Canada. Edmonton in particular, there's one school in Bruder, I think it is, around Edmonton. They basically said the kids were not engaged. They had a challenging population of kids, lots of stuff going on in their life, very emotionally stirred up. And they just said, that's it. We're changing the structure of our school. We're doubling up recess. And they gave them an hour of instruction, 15 minutes recess. And that's how they roll through their day. 4 hours of work, half an hour followed by every hour followed by a recess period, and their engagement went up, their attention, their attention and their learning, all the outcomes went up because they had work interspersed with play. So just think about how you create the playground, like the space free of outcomes, how you set the stage, you bring the materials, and then how are you going to roll that out in terms of structure and routine. That's how I would and play, experiment at this. No one can, you've got a unique situation with your ages of your kids in the school environment that you're in and who your children are. So use your insight to say what would appeal to them this way.
Great, thank you. Um, so how we're looking at sort of managing children's behavior. And so I have a couple of questions here. One of them is, how does the classroom environment affect learning and the group dynamics? Remember, we're talking 4 and 5-year-olds here mainly.
Hmm. Yeah. So how does the classroom environment? Well, when you get 4 and 5-year-olds together, they've got an energy all on their own, and they're not always tempered at this age, right? They don't all have impulse control, so they've got a whole bunch of emotional energy that they bring to school with them. So automatically that you've got to provide some structure routine as part of a classroom environment, so that it also signifies to kids where they've got to be and when, because they don't have the impulse control to always know that or to read the cues in the situation. So we have to have lots of structure and routine to hold on to emotions and get ahead of the discipline stuff. We need strong relationships with their teachers, so that they look to them to be the answer, to guide through tricky situations, to orient them for rules or whatever it might be, and to realize that they're not built for work. Like, these kids need to play at this age 4 and 5. They need to play. They play and they learn so much. With trying to get them to sit down and focus and learn the traditional way is likely going to backfire with a lot of frustration and resistance, because they're just not built for work. They don't have the brain integration yet. So a lot of play in that kind of situation. And then when things do go sideways, then it's just taking the lead through it. You don't have to deal with everything in front of the class. You don't have to deal with everything in the moment. You can just press pause. I'll talk about it. Thanks for bringing it up. We're kind of frustrated. I'll figure it out. I'd like you to do this. I'd like you to do this. And not to forget about the importance of your relationship in this context, especially because if you think about it, this is kids' first experience of traditional school. Like, they may come from preschool or whatever. I'm always very thoughtful about who our kids first meet as a representation of school. This is such an important age. And teachers at this age are for teachers that I meet, really, it helps to love little kids, and it really helps to be that warm place for them. This is a very special year to grab kids, and so they need a soft person to land on, but one that isn't afraid to lead, one that isn't afraid to play, one that has the structured routine, and one that can deal with the impasses. Remember, they're already alarmed at being away from their big people or wherever they are, and so we represent a whole school and a big environment. I was terrified in kindergarten. I was so alarmed. I didn't know the environment. I didn't know what these people would do to me. Everything was strange. And so if we can keep that in mind when we're dealing with them, and not, what might seem like a small reaction from us could be a really big one for them. And to take it for granted that they didn't mean to hurt someone, take, their good intentions, like that they're just learning, that sometimes we make mistakes. This kind of approach, I think, would be much more helpful to the young child. You're just getting there. It's okay. I'm here to help. Just look at me if you feel lost, and checking in with them quite a bit. And organizing their time together with supervision. There's so many different things here from a discipline point of view. And I think a lot of people who deal with young kids, this is quite intuitive to a lot of you, but we can't take it for granted, because they just don't have impulse control, self-regulation. The executive centers of the brain are not there, and their emotions can flip from one to the other really quickly. Even though you tell them 100 times, it will just flip, and you'll be like, wow. I remember one kindergarten teacher said, I looked over, I said, that little one over there, she's so adorable. And she said, oh, she is. She had like one sock down, one sock off, like they get changed after like PE, and they got their shirts everywhere, and they're just like a mess. I said, she's just adorable. She's everything like a young child would be. She said, yeah, she's really young. Because the other day I turned my back, and then I turned over, and she had her hand up, and she was just ready to strike someone, like come down and strike them. And I just looked at her and said, no. And she went, she put her hand down. Like, they're just so impulsive. She's like, no, not here. No, don't use your hands. I'll be right there.
Mm.
Oh my God. If I can't, my next life, if I get a next life, I would come back as a kindergarten teacher. I just think this is such a special age, but so chaotic. It's so
Yeah.
chaotic.
Well, this brings us to a whole another series of questions because, as you know, with COVID-19, we're dealing with a whole different structure. So people have all sorts of questions around how can you attach well if we're keeping our distance? You know, is touch an important part of attachment? How are we going to work with our children? Because we're not allowed to do the things that we used to be able to do before for them,
Mm,
and how is this going to affect our relationship with them?
yeah. Well, it means changes for sure. It's hard to put our head around what it's going to be like. I think it'll make it a lot. I think we're going to do a lot of imagining until our kids are back into school. But one thing that doesn't change is that they need to orient to somebody, and how you connect with your kids isn't just through physicality. Remember, we we're able to leave home to go to school because we can connect with our adults at home without having to stay close physically. And so attachment is very robust, and physical contact is just one of the ways, and it's actually not even one of the more robust ways. Feeling there's other ways. Remember in chapter 4, I talk about all the ways that we can connect. So go back into that roots. We connect by being the same, right? I'm your teacher. Oh, we're both wearing the same color today. We're both part of the school. You have an identity that's shared. You're all part of my grade 3 class or kindergarten class or whatever it is. You then connect through belonging and loyalty, right? I am for you, you are for me, and the loyalty and the relationship that creates, and the identity that you create in your classroom. And number 4, you get the significance where they want to matter. Your eyes light up. You remember things about them. Oh, how was your soccer game? How was that? It's good to see you today. And you're using their names, and you're conveying significance and that they matter. Your eyes, when they light up, do you know how powerful your eyes are when they light up to see a child? That you're delighted. They've even done research that show the facial muscles of a fake smile versus a true smile. Like if I think about, oh, good morning, nice to see you, versus, oh, good morning, I'm so happy to see you today, right? Like I just thought of a person, right? And you can see your whole facial expression is different, right? You warm up. That brings your kids near. The tone of your voice, right? For some kids, it's like big and loud because that's your relationship. And some of them it's small and, oh, how are you? How you show up, and you read the body cues, you understand that child, the tone of your voice, to your eyes, the significance you give. Oh, all those things matter. Trying to create a sense of an identity in your classroom. This is my grade 3 class. I even gave a presentation once when I worked in a university of what we do with our first year students. These are the kindergartners. This is equivalent to kindergarten in university. So our first year students, who are like our kindergartners in university, they have a hard year. Just like kindergartners do. And so I use the same principles. How do we get in their face? It wasn't about physical contact. You can't touch a 17, 18-year-old. There's no physical contact. It's all about sameness, welcome. You're part of this university. You're part of this classroom. I'm your teacher. This is our identity. This is our history. We're so happy to see you. You matter. I'm here to help. All those ways convey an invitation to be close. And that is what attachment is. Physical contact is just one small part of it. There will be challenges, of course, with little ones and needing your physical help. And I think your schools will make, you'll get guidelines and understanding of how to do that in a safe way. But don't forget, relationship is not physical. We'd never go anywhere if it was. It's about holding you on close. So don't be afraid to convey all of that wonderful desire to be close in a lot of ways. I was thinking about you over the summer. I was thinking about how we'll do all these changes. I was thinking about you last night and thinking we should do this today. That's all significance. That's all attachment. The last thing I'll say on this is that sometimes I think in writing about attachment, my biggest fear is that we forget that it's not in the head. It's in your heart. It's in who you are. If you decided to work with children, I think you like them. Because you could have worked with numbers, you could have worked with things, you could have worked with objects, but you chose to work with children. So there's something already inside of you that likes these kids. Don't be afraid to let them see that. That's relationship. Relationship, you can't do it of a book. You can get a degree in attachment, but you could be lousy at it. In fact, here's the secret. A lot of those old attachment theorists, they had terrible relationships with their kids. It just blows my mind that they could be experts today and revered as attachment therapists, and they had terrible relationships with their kids. It's in you to give. So please don't let the science get in the way of that. But these are just some pointers to obviously remind us of how we do relationship, warmth, delight, enjoyment, and even for that child who's really hard to be around. You
Because
know,
that was one of the
I,
questions, is how do we
yeah,
connect with our really challenging students?
I find a hard time doing that unless I can see underneath that child, unless I can see what's driving that child a little bit. And you'll see this, you know, like if you see a child who's struggling with things that you know about, like lost a parent or poverty or whatever it might be, and you can see that and you know that story in your heart for that child, then you are moved in a different way. As if a child who just shows up, no, I'm not going to do that, what's your problem, and you know, can I help you, and they're just full of contempt for you. Oh, you do not want to get close to that child. And then I remind myself that where does that behavior come from? Oh, it's awful behavior, I don't want to be near it. But what do I know about that? That I know that the people that are hurting the most tend to hurt and strike out the most. And then I think, well, why is this child so hurt? What's stirring them up? What is their story? Why did they come to school like that today? When the reality is that that child probably wanted, like, if we look at what humans are designed for, we're designed to connect, to want to be with each other, to want to play, to be able to focus and to attend and to learn and to think about who we are. This child does not show up like that. That child isn't able to do any of those things. And it's just pushing everybody away. And then I think about how lonely that child must be because nobody wants to be near that child. Then I think about how all the other kids know this about them and how they're an easy mark in the class because they're easy to pick on, they're easy to exclude, they're easy to stir up. That every child can see that. And this child is without any shield in that classroom then too. No adult's going to take care of that child. Other kids will very quickly try to pick on that child to get them in trouble. And then I think about who or how this child got so hurt and how I can be an answer to that. And then part of me said, well, I don't want to be the answer to it. And then part of me says, if you don't, who will? And then my heart goes out for that child.
Yeah.
Then I take that child home with me. Sometimes I'll have fantasies. I just wish I could adopt that child.
Yeah.
And then I'll think, well, how do I just show up and let them see my eyes just for one day? Oh, they're going to push me away tomorrow. That's going to happen. I'm going to come in and say good morning. They're going to say, yeah, that's nice. And I'm just going to keep showing up with those eyes. So that somewhere inside that child, maybe there's a seed that they just feel that just preserves that there was just someone who wanted to be around them. See, the big key about these kids is they don't make you want to be close to them. You're going to have to use how you make sense of them to want to be close to them. But I can tell you, they are the ones who need you most. And then I think about my kids. I think if I don't show up for that kid, my kids are going to live with that child. They're going to grow up with that child. That child who's stuck in my classroom is my children's future as well. And that makes me want to show up for that child as well. But it's hard. It's hard to get close to a porcupine. You just got to realize that they're hurt, and that's why they have that. So just don't hurt them. Bridge, yeah. I'm still here for you. That desire to be close. Some of these kids you're going to get. Some of them you won't. But if every adult had that approach to every stuck child like this, then someone's going to get them. Someone in the village is going to get them because they're not just likely an issue in your class. They're probably an issue on the playground. They're an issue when they go for phys ed. They're an issue everywhere. But if every adult had those eyes for that child might actually start to feel at home in your school.
And we all know children who do, for whom school is the safe place.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sadly so.
Yeah, for sure. People, also some of the questions were just around the alarm that children are facing when they're going to, they're in our schools. They're going to be scared because of the COVID. They're going to be, one of the questions was what happens if we have to intervene because they're doing something they're not supposed to do because of the new COVID rules? How are we going to intervene with them so that they don't get alarmed? Because we do have to say no. And so how are we going to manage that, the needs of the pandemic and the safety of the children and the needs of the children themselves?
Yeah. think there's a couple of things there, at least three things that I see. One is about leading and scripting. The other one is about play. And then the other one is just about how we deal when they forget. So I'm just trying to remind myself in case I forget these three things. The first is we can't forget that we've always lead our kids through tough things and alarming things at school, from fire drills to lockdown drills to here in BC earthquake drills. We have to lead through alarming things, and the way that we do that is through simple scripts and procedures. In the unlikely event that this happens, or whatever it is, this is what we do. In the unlikely event of an earthquake, we get underneath the desk. If there's a fire, pay attention to me. We're going to practice. We go out to our safe spot, and then I count you, and then so on and so forth. And we practice this. When we are dealing with alarming things, we don't put alarm in our voice. We just lead through just simple scripts and conversation with a non-alarming tone. Can I count on you? This is what we're going to do, right? We have to be thoughtful about physical distancing now. And so this is what it looks like. I wouldn't put any alarm in it. I wouldn't add to the situation. I wouldn't see it as a time to go into huge explanations about COVID. What's important here is about how we're going to do school now. This is a new way of doing school. Here we go. This is what it looks like. And use your relationship and try to move the children in your direction. The second part of that is the easiest way to move them in your direction is through relationship now, right? So, I'm your teacher, you're collecting them, you're engaging them, you're using their voice. Maybe before they come back to school, there's some sort of bridge. I'm looking forward to seeing you, a little phone call, a little video that you do to gather your kids, remind them what you look like, play around with it a little bit, maybe be a little bit silly, whatever it is, just add some fun to it and send off a message to them and as an invitation. I'm waiting for you to come back, and you're trying to collect. We're going to have to pay a lot of attention to relationship, a lot of attention, because we need to lead our kids through something that's alarming and something where there's new rules. So do it in a non-alarming way, script it, and second, to pay attention to relationship so that you can lead them, and use play to help them understand the new rules. Use play. I still remember when we did the leading kids back to school, Eva, the image of the teacher with the hockey stick and the pet at the end of the hockey stick and saying, I'm just walking my dog. Don't get near my dog. It's going to bite. And this is how far they should stay away from each other. Like, what a brilliant idea. Every kid can relate to that. And it's just so silly that you'd walk your dog on a hockey stick, and it's so Canadian. I loved it. I love that. Yeah. It just looked so Canadian. We know how to do this. We're Canadians. We got hockey sticks. Who doesn't know how long a hockey stick is? And you just talk about that as a attachment, belonging, loyalty, all this. Anyway, so put play into it to teach the new things, have the relationship. Kids are most resistant, having problems learning the new ways of being, tripping on themselves. Well, the little ones is probably just impulse control. For the bigger ones, I would try to bring them back around. I think you probably forgot that. Solicit. So the thing to deal with the resistance is to solicit some intentions. Draw off the resistance. I know this seems weird or funny, or you don't want to do it. You might pull the child aside. You're having a hard time with this, right? Is this not what you wanted when you came back to school? Make some room for their resistance, maybe in your one-on-one chat or something. Is this what's going on, that you just don't feel like doing all these things? Try to help the child, give you a sense of why they're struggling with the so-called new rules, and then just come alongside it. I know there's a lot to get used to, and if you have a relationship with that child, solicit some intentions. Can I count on you to try? I know you don't want to do this. I know this is hard. I know you probably just forgot. I know this isn't on purpose. Give the child the benefit of the doubt, right? I believe in you goes a long, long way. You're not trying to be a problem. You're just having problems with this. I get it too. It took me a while as well. So the child who's really resistant, maybe pull them out. Make sure if you don't have a relationship, this is going to be hard to do. But pull them out, try to get underneath it, make room for it, and solicit some intentions and point them in the right direction. But I would treat everything that is an infraction of the rules as a slip up. Oh, we forgot. Forgetty brain. We just forgot. Can anyone help me remember the rules? I know it's going to take some time to get used to. Review, and put some play, preserve your relationship, and take the lead through this. But yeah, it's just a new normal. And, you know, when you go into grade 4, it's different from grade 3. You're orienting kids to grade 4. You go, you know, from kindergarten to grade 1, there's a shift. You orient kids to what that's going to be like. So just treat it in the same way. There's just some added things to think about. There's just classrooms that look really different.
Yeah. Well, and I know that that's one of the big concerns. People alluded to it in their questions, but I know that when I've been talking to people working in the K4 and K5 classrooms, is that we just spent all this time talking about the importance of children actively playing, you know, to the point where we even talked about perhaps some of them, you know, doing a little bit of rough and tumble play and giving space for that. And now, all of a sudden, people are really concerned about the developmental needs of children. Is how are we going to allow this developmental things to happen when the play is going to have to be pretty well solitary play? Do you see that as being a huge deficit for children, or is there a way of reframing that?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, there's a couple things in there, but one is I don't agree that it's all solitary. When we sing together, we sing in harmony. That's play. Like you can sing from different places, but you come together and you are sharing in the event. Um, so I think there are ways to play that don't, not all play ever involved physical contact. That's, I think, a myth. Does it mean we have to be more creative around it? Yes. Does it mean that we have to do more things solitarily? Yes and no. I mean, what can we do that doesn't, you know, with enough distance, we can yell, we can talk, and we can hear, you know, and we can see. Like, so there are things that we have to do with the senses that way that would be in play. And, you know, we're going to have lots of really interesting creative people create some very interesting play out of these parameters. But remember, play is not so fixed that it can't fit into the tightest of spaces. It isn't something that is hemmed in by space. It is an instinct. And as an instinct, it can adapt to the space that is there. So please don't think this is a foregone conclusion. Our instincts to play are so critical to survival. COVID cannot take that away. People in Italy were singing out of their small little windows. Ah! You know, like it's got to come out, open the window. I'm going to sing to the neighborhood. Like it's incredible. So I believe so much in play. Think about the senses, the modalities, and the physical parameters that you have. Play will find its way inside that box. Secondly, I think singular creative solitude and play is wonderful for kids. I think sometimes too much of their play is controlled by a group or a child, and everybody else follows along. For those kids that are more introverted or shy or whatever you want to call it, this is a wonderful opportunity for them to have some space that is actually preserved for them to play in. Like, you know, this is where they have their own canvas. This is where they have their own tools. This is where they have a little stage that's just set for them. I think this is fantastic for kids. In fact, I would have recommended more individual play in a school environment if possible, to actually get away from some of the pure orientation, to get away and create more of a space for the child's own emergence and selfhood and preferences and desires to come out, and to prevent wounding from other kids, where someone is, you know, pressed down upon so other people can lead. So I think this is not a problem at all, that idea around play. So does that answer everything? So yes, I do think that we'll have to think creatively. I do think play is there. Am I worried developmentally? This is the other question I've been thinking about kids. Am I worried that COVID's going to take our kids off track developmentally? And I thought, well, how do I answer that question? Well, I think about, well, what is it the kids need to grow, right? Deb, you wrote a book about that. Certainly you could find some answers in that book of yours. This is the conversation I'm having with myself in my head. Well, what do kids need? They need relationships. They need room to play, and growth will happen. Do we still have that? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So I don't think COVID is going to COVID itself doesn't have the power to take us off track. It's our response to COVID that will take us off track. What do our children need? They need safety and the security of relationship. They need a home. They need a home in the truest sense. This is instinctive. This is inside of us to give. It's us to give the invitation and to orient our children to us. I was reading this might sound like a bit of a off track. I was reading about how a bird creates a nest. I'm doing this for my new book on food and attachment. It's a beautiful analogy of how a bird creates a nest. How do they know? Well, it's instinctive. And they take all these materials, hard branches, and all sorts of stuff, and build these nests. They're actually quite incredible creatures to build these formidable nests that have such strength to them. And the bird places all the objects together in a very unique way. And she's always testing the strength of the nest by flexing her body, and creates the nest around her body. And she puts things together in very unique ways that engineers would rival the bird's capacity to build this beautiful nest. But she's always making it with her body and with her instincts to put things together to create a home. And the nest has this incredible engineering capacity where it is firm so that the little baby birds can flex themselves against it and they are contained, but it is soft enough so that the birds can move. And I thought, is this not the perfect analogy for a home? Something strong enough to lean against so you don't fear you're going to fall. I've got you, I'll take care of you. But soft enough that you can flex yourself in any direction and find who you are. And that's what relationship and play does. You're anchored and then you figure out who you are. Yes, we can do this in the time of COVID. No, because our kids can't touch each other, that's not going to take them off track. No, because they can't play so freely. No, that doesn't take them off track. Our job is still the same, to get our kids to feel at home with us, to feel secure, and to open up the spaces for play. And that is the answer. It'll be the answer today. It'll be the answer tomorrow in another pandemic, and whatever is down the road that we have no clue that's coming. It will always be the answer. We are incredibly adaptable. And the last thing I'll say on this is that watching us adapt in this pandemic, while it has been horrifying and sad and scary, it has also been incredibly beautiful and has reminded me again how incredible human beings are to adapt and become resilient, and how deep our caring can be for each other. You don't see this stuff if you're not in the face of adversity. So I think we're incredible when we're at our best, and I think we're horrifying when we're at our worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the questions, and I see that it also came through on the chat, but also people were alluding to, but aren't children, especially 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds, and of course older as well, but isn't one of the reasons we put them in school is because we want them to play together so they will socialize and learn how to socialize. And in the COVID times, is that going to be a problem for them? Are they going to end up unable to be social beings because we're not truly allowing them to play with each other in the way that we did before?
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you asked this question. And I would say I am sad for our children not to have the benefit of more children to play with. That does make me sad. It makes me sad when I look at my kids and think about, being on their devices, and the joy that I see on their faces when they're able to have some connection with their friends. And they've got beautiful friends. And they don't compete for my connection with them. They've got friends that can be close to their adults, and I can connect with their friends and have conversations with most of their friends as well. So I love the fact that these children are on the journey in my children's life to grow up. Is it required for them to become adaptive, separate social creatures? No, it's not required. That's the thing we've got to remember. I love that these kids are in my kids' lives, but in terms of them becoming a social being, they have what they need to get there in terms of they've got a small family grouping and they've got adults in their lives who represent the social norms. To be honest with you, the people who probably teach the most about becoming a social being is me or my husband and how they show up or don't show up and need some help understanding how one would show up in those situations. So it's wonderful that they have friends. It would be great if we could allow that. Is it necessary for development? No, it's not. No, it's not. The idea that our children have to have so many other children of the same age around them in order to socially grow is a myth. And I do offer an apology actually to you, and especially in this, because this is a book club and you've read Rest, Play, Grow, is that one of the chapters that I had to cut, I had 14 chapters, so I had to cut 4 because my publisher said, forget about it. No one's going to read it. It's too long. And I stuffed in an extra 3,000 words and they just gave up on me. But one of the chapters I had to cut, and I now wonder if I regret it or I don't regret it. And I've even thought I should just write the chapter and just release it for free and just give it to people. And it was called The Myth of Socialization: Why Getting Along is Overrated. And it speaks to this issue that we have become so preoccupied with our children getting along that we've forgotten that selfhood must come before personhood must come before democracy and must come before community. That our children, in order really to show up as an individual in society where maturity is required, they've got to know who they are. And the two strong periods of growth and development this way are in the preschool years and again in the adolescent years. Our kids aren't showing up in adolescence ready to do this work in the degrees that they need to be. When I look at our teen population, I see we are in trouble with our adolescents. Whatever's happening between preschool and adolescence, we've got to make sure that they are on track to make sense of themselves in the context of their healthy adult relationships. And we're having troubles in our teen years. And I'm seeing more and more younger children, 2 years of age, peer oriented, right? Peer oriented, where they just have no time for their adults and they just want to be around their peers. And this happens more and more in the early years, where they lose the connection with their adults and they orient around their peers more and more. And then their teachers are lost to them. Adult influence is lost to them. Our rules, our guidelines, our capacity to keep them safe in a time of COVID, when we need it more than ever to keep our kids safe. They're not safe with each other. They can't guide themselves through this. There is no way. And so what the myth of socialization that we have sort of drank the water around this, I don't know where this came from, is the idea that our children grow each other up. They don't. They never have. They grow, if they become the answer, they don't grow them up. That's the whole point. They don't grow up. And so we have to hold on to our relationships. So separated from each other, I'm actually glad for our most peer-oriented children that they are separated. And I can tell you, in my private practice, those kids are going through a very, very, very hard time. What I saw in the very early days before their parents finally would come and talk to me about it, saying, I don't know what's happened. This has been worse for my kids. They're going squirrel crazy. They won't get off their devices. They're full of pursuit. They're full of frustration. And all you could see was this huge pursuit to be with their friends. And now their adults are their answer. They think they've died and gone to hell. Oh my gosh. I'm trapped at home with these people. And I've said this 100 times already. This pandemic is good for your child and for your family. I hate to say it in this sense, not overall, because your child needed to come home to you. Now, well, did the pandemic cause all this? No, the pandemic brought this to light of how far you and your child are from each other, how you had lost them to their peers. This is just put a flashlight on it. It's shone it bigger. And every parent, when they see it, they're like, oh my gosh, I get an opportunity to reclaim my kids and be the answer here, right? So this is the answer here. We've got so lost at social stuff that our kids need to talk to each other, be like each other, get along with each other, be popular. I think, when I think back, part of this, I think, is our own wounds from being in school, where I was not shielded from the wounds. I had, teachers here and there, my mom and dad, but I couldn't tell them everything because they would go crazy on the kids, or they would go crazy up at the school. And I didn't want my parents up there ranting about, another child, because I knew I'd be in trouble when I get on the playground again. But I remember those teachers that were shields around my heart who would say, don't take it into your heart. This is not about you, honey. This is just another child having some troubles. Do you know how powerful that is in a child's life? Look at me. It's not about you, sweetie. That child's having a hard time. Don't take it into your heart. Kids are just like that. Look around. It'll be that person today, the next person the other way. You know how many times I've used that with my kids? Hurt people, hurt other people, honey. Don't take it into your heart. Other kids are immature. That's what I expect from them. They're all immature. They're just trying to figure out how to grow up. So please don't worry about social development. I'm not worried about it if they have you in their life. I'm not worried about it if they have healthy, mature adults. I'm thinking, oh, thank goodness. Is that what the pandemic will bring to our children? Amen.
I am wondering if really, because we're having to monitor more closely, that we more easily become more the leaders in the school. The adults need to keep the
Mm,
children safe, and the children look to the adults to keep them safe, and that creates that nice hierarchy.
mm,
Yeah.
mhm. And the ones we're going to have to be worried about the most are the kids who are most dominant, who are alpha, who are resistant, who do not see us, who are very peer oriented. And these are going to be the kids that we're going to have to really be paying attention to and have a plan for when they come back to school. And we don't know who's going to come back to school in what position. We don't know what has happened at home. We don't know their story. And so if I was a teacher stepping into the classroom again for September, I'd be thinking, I've got to do a quick assessment. Who is with me? Who's following? Who thinks they're in charge? Who's most frustrated? Who's most stirred up? I'm going to do an assessment. It could be very easy. If it's, a small, younger kids, it's circle time. If it's just, you're giving your plan for the day, you're watching their eyes. Where are their eyes going? Are they going to each other? Are they going to you? How are they looking at you? Do you get those alpha eyes? Like, yeah, you think you're in charge and I'm so cool for school. Like, what have you got sitting in your class? I'd have a little, I'd even do a little, as I would often do, just to remember kids' names, a little thing of their classroom desks. And I would write down, as soon as I had a bit of a break, just write down what I'm seeing. And I would pay very close attention to that. We have a seating map, but I would do a relational map of my classroom. What is a relational and emotional map of that classroom? Who's close to me? Who can I connect with? Who seems far away? And who seems stirred up? And I would have in their little desk map a relational and emotional map to just peg where I think the kids are at, because that would be my work. That would be my work in September. That's how I would see it. Learning's important, but this piece in terms of how kids are going to come back to school, orienting to their adults and the emotional state, that is the first thing on the agenda when it comes to school. Because otherwise our classrooms, we don't have a hope in terms of leading our classrooms without those pieces taken care of.
Yeah, it's a real different orientation. Some of the questions came, I think, probably prior to this reorganization that we're having to do, and especially if we're increasing the amount of play, especially in our K4s and K5s, and allowing children more space to play in whatever way that we get them to play. And I think, as you say, sometimes we're going to need to play with them to get them to follow our lead in terms of the safety features. But someone was saying, well, how do you deal with other people's expectations? Criticism from the grade 1 teacher, or people that are parents who don't understand and want children to be performing academically. How do we explain these developmental needs to these other people?
Well, I could certainly answer that question in many ways, some nicer than others. Here's the thing about being a teacher, and is I think it takes you have to be arrogant enough that you think you're your kid's answer. Like, teachers who don't feel that sense inside of me and don't have that sense of arrogance, I just don't. I think it's a bit more of a struggle. You are the answer in that classroom. You have to be the answer in that classroom. There is no safety without you being the answer in that classroom. There were days as a teacher when I felt most conflicted, teaching in high school in particular with teens, and I didn't get like I got the youth at risk. That was my population. So they taught me everything about relationship. But man, I had some sideways issues in those classrooms. And I can tell you, I struggled, A, sometimes to like some of those kids, B, to say, to give up my agenda, because my agenda was to plow through and to get work done, because that's what I was there for. That was the lesson plan that I prepared for. That was the work that I put into it. And so when I saw people not following me, that was difficult. But I can tell you this, it brought out the arrogance in me to say, I have to be the answer. I have to find a way through. And, I had one peer-oriented class that was the only reason they showed up was to be with each other. And I had this requirement of 30%, 40% of it, their mark had to come from group work. And I thought, I might as well just stab myself with a fork, because that's what it felt like teaching these kids every day. You'd say, go do group work. And I go, and they're all chatting about something else. There was no work being done. There was groups and no work. That's what my group work looked like. And I thought, this is hopeless. This is hopeless. And I thought, Deb, you got to take the lead. You got to take the lead here. This is not going to work. And I thought, okay, a group is 2 people. So here's the new group work. Me and the student. That's my new group work. I cut out all the group work. I thought, you bring it on, Ministry of Education. You bring it on, faculty. that I was part of, because I was in a university teaching grade 11 and 12. You bring it on. You can come down and breathe down my neck, and I'm going to tell you exactly why my decision making was such that I am doing group work with this child, academically, pedagogically, emotionally, socially. I'll explain it to you every single which way. You come and question me if you want, but this is what I have to do, because I know these kids, I'm the teacher, and I'm responsible, and I've got to get to the end goal. So I thought, you want to come and question me on it? Someone can complain, you go for it, bring it on. And then if you don't like it, you come and teach my class then. And that's just the way we're going to go. But I didn't apologize. It took me a long way to get there. It wasn't a false confidence, and it wasn't an angry one of like telling everyone to just get away from me. It was like this, this, here's the thing. Being a teacher is being a professional. And part of professionalism is making hard choices. It's about sitting with your decision making, sitting with your judgment, sitting with what you see, sitting with your knowledge, and looking at past practice and saying, this is my wisdom that I bring to my job. We are not technicians as teachers. We should bring our judgment. We should bring our wisdom. We should bring our insight. Malcolm Gladwell, an incredible writer, Canadian writer, he said that the people who know the most about humans are teachers. Because we have to sit with it. We have to sit with these problems. So what I would say to this is show up and be a professional. You don't answer to a grade 1 teacher, and you don't answer to parents to this degree. It's your classroom. It's your pedagogical learning outcomes. As long as you're steering forward with the best professionalism, judgment, and ways that you know how. If you are called to task, you should be able to explain that, but not to explain your existence, but to explain your job as a professional. And I think we've got to get back to more of that professionalism rather than saying we answer to everybody for how we do our job. We do have to answer to some people, but I should not stand in judgment of someone else's professionalism in a grade 1 classroom as they should in my grade 4 classroom. So stand strong, surround yourselves with people who get you and who understand what this means. This took me a long time to learn as a teacher. This did not come quickly. And as a counselor, it did not come quickly either. But this was forged in many battles where I had to second guess myself, and I was not sure, but I knew that the only person in the room that could figure it out was me. So sit in the conflict of all of it and let it grow you. This is how you become a teacher in the truest sense.
It's a big job, and but I think that the neuroscience research, all of the material that you collected for your book is very solid in terms of what we know our children need, and not everyone is up to date with that.
No.
And we need to be, yeah. Well, we're getting close to our time here. Just one sort of other general question is how do we bring parents alongside? Because some of the parents are going to be questioning some of the things that we do in our classrooms. And so how do we bring parents alongside?
Mm-hmm. I think, again, it comes back to taking the lead with our parents. It's understanding that they're going to be concerned, some more than others, that they're putting their hands, their children in your hands. Some of them are going to be quite glad that they're gone, and others are going to be quite nervous. And so, as we always do, we take the lead, and I'll take care of your kids here. I remember my daughter's her principal. Every year she gave the same speech on parent orientation night. We feel so honored to have your children. They are special to us. We take such good care of them. Nobody's going to get left behind. We're paying attention to them. Don't you worry about their needs here. When they're in our hands, your children are special to us, and we care deeply about your kids. I would feel as a parent, I would just go, oh, okay. And it wasn't just talk. They weren't just talking. I could feel that at the school. And so I would show up with that very strong stance. I'm here to take care of your kids. Nothing has changed. It's only fortified my stance that I know this is you trust me with your children. And then I would roll out what it is you're going to do. So here are some of the things. Lead the parents. 10 things to consider. Could you do this? Orient your children to this. This is what we're doing on the first day. If you have any questions and concerns, this is how you get a hold of me, and set up a process and a protocol so that you're not just overwhelmed. And this is when I'll check it, emails, and this is how I'll respond. Please wait for 48 hours. If it's more pressing, I'll get a hold of you. Don't be afraid to steer the parents through this and set up parameters around your own well-being here. But again, just build the relationship with parents like you do, it messages home. you know, sharing your child's work with the parents as you do, the celebrations. Get on with your business. Get on with your business of school. Anchor back into the routines. You know, I was thinking about trick or treating this year and Halloween, and the likelihood of not being able to go and do this. So, you know, be thinking about these rituals, and this is what we're going to do instead, and blah blah blah. And just trying to lead through all of these things and thinking ahead, and how you bring your parents on board, and trying to think creatively, and use your other adults to represent, you know, your other colleagues, to think of ways that as a school you can create new rituals when you can't be physically close, and how as a classroom you set up new rituals, and how you're going to communicate with parents. I think if you can get ahead of, my general rule of thumb is give enough information that people feel secure, but don't give up your lead by courting in, don't court like parents over involvement at the same time. You've got to take the lead and not appear to be asking for input where there is no input required. But that stance, you know, but if you do have questions, I'm here to help you, and to just get on with the business of what you've normally done. But sharing things, you know, if you're thinking about it from a parent hat, they just go, what's going on in school now? I don't have a window into the classroom. What was this like? But as soon as they see a picture of their kids having fun at their desks, as soon as they see them eating lunch at their desks, they're going to feel their anxiety is going to go down, because like, okay, that looks like a normal day, and the teacher's in charge, and they're keeping up to date in a regular, structured way. I think parents' anxiety will go down. But it's also to expect that it's going to be high for the first little bit. It might just be higher in some than others. Again, the parents that already had high alarm are going to probably be more alarmed, and you'll have to figure out a way to come alongside those emotions without letting it dictate how you do things, and support them at the same time. But yeah, you'll have to carve a channel for the alarm.
Great. Well, I'm going to ask Martine and Catherine to come back up.
Mhm.
I know that they've been monitoring the chat and sending along a few questions. There they are. So I don't know if there was some other questions that came up or thoughts that came to your mind that you would like
I think I would
Deborah
just
to.
add some thought to what Deborah was just saying there with parents, where it's in the lead with the parents is reading their needs and behavior the same way we do the students, and to read the need and then take the lead with it. And for parents to help reduce their anxiety is very much giving them that sense of, you know what you're doing, that you are taking good care of the kids, and that they can lean on you. And that if they have concerns, to reach you directly and not be having conversations with the kids. That there's adult issues and there's things that we say with the kids, so that we're not transferring that to the kids and adding more weight there. But I think we need to handle the parents very much like we do the kids. Read the needs and take the lead.
Yeah. Martine, would you see anyone in the school setting that would be more, that could take up a position with getting ahead of some of those challenges of parents and inviting that? Like, I know some
Absolutely.
principals, like, or VPs could have a, you know, a weekly Friday chat on Zoom, and maybe to draw off some of that pressure off of the teacher's back, and just to bring it out of the classroom and into the school level, where an administrator could maybe take the lead on that. I'm wondering if that would help.
I think that could be a piece. I also think that some of the support staff, the educators that are working with some of the special needs students, that they could also be having communication with the parents, so that they could really feel that link that has always been there at the school, you know, of that was the link. And I think that's part of what we need to reiterate, is to let parents know that some things are the same and some things are different, but what they need to rely on is what was the same. The relationships will continue, and they have been continuing, and who can they count on, and how can they reach them? I think that if they offer, you know, like a bit of like office time where they can Zoom in or email in and have some points of contact, I think that will go a long way to help reduce anxiety.
Yeah, great. We're just about on our time there. I don't know, Catherine, if there was something you wanted to add in?
I just wanted to add to what Martine was saying. I think the other piece too that could be important for the parents to hold on to, above and beyond what the school has to offer, is what school boards also have to offer. Center of Excellence, on our website, we have created some materials both for schools and for parents And so these are things that people can go back to. And of course they can, reread, they can rewatch. And so there's a lot of resources out there.
Good. Well, thank you. And I know we could hold you here, Deborah, for at least another good hour.
Oh, I
I'm
wouldn't
sure
mind.
that. Well, I think it is
Thank you so
in
much.
Quebec here. It's
Thank you,
it's
Patricia.
4:45. I think people need to
Oh,
be
I'm just kidding.
feeding their children. But thank you so much. I think we tried to cover most of the questions. I'm sure there were a few that we didn't get to, but perhaps another time. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here today with us, answering the questions, helping people to see what they can bring to the children in their care. And thank you for writing the book so we can go back and reread some of those chapters.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and for all the work that you do to support families and to bring this material. I'm just one of many people at the Neufeld Institute, and I just feel blessed to work among all of you. And thank you so much to everybody who showed up today for reading the book and for supporting this work and making sense of kids and being willing to go on this journey. It's incredibly meaningful to be here with you today. So thank you.
I think an added resource is we have enjoyed and read the book, but I think people need to feel very comfortable and safe in passing on your book to parents, Deborah. I have in many meetings have passed it on and circled certain chapter numbers for them to start with, just to help guide them, to support them in the discussion that we're having and provide information and context and how we're working at building relationship, but understanding where behaviors are coming from, so that it's not that we are not dealing with it, but we are shifting and are looking at things in a different way. So to have this as a resource for parents, I've had many parents come back and going, thank you, it makes so much sense. And for a lot of them, it has brought them back to their intuition, because intuitively they wanted to parent in a certain way, but then structures around and other recommendations just was pulling them off track. So helping them in that way. So I think, yes, it's a push for the book, but it's an honest one. Okay.
Thank you.
I think that many parents can benefit. So for teachers, for staff to feel very comfortable to pass it on, both French and English, and it's in so many languages. If others are needing other languages, they could check on your website. But I think it's an asset that we have of a book that we know that is emotionally safe to hand out, because not all resources are.
If I may add, as a quick and easy access to online, Deborah has a wonderful website where she's got tons and tons of editorials that are excerpts, some of them from the book. And on the website of the Center of Excellence, we have translated many of her editorials. And so those are available as well to be shared.
The infographics also.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much for all your work.
Well, thank you. And of course, at the heart of all of this are the precious children in our care. So thank you, everyone, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Nice talk.